When we talk of democracy, we mean true representation, and the parliament is the place. And therefore, the people must be informed. A program that brings to you expert clarifications and teachings of parliamentary concepts and procedures. Welcome to this program.
Thank you very much.
On Parliamentary Guide, we'll teach, we explain, we clarify parliamentary concepts and terms.
And value of run oversight over the executive. And value of run oversight over the executive.
It's good to have you join us on the program Parliamentary Guide, where we keep you acquainted with parliamentary processes, concepts, and issues. I am Mitaire Ikben. Many thanks for joining us at this time. On the program today, we shall be focusing on the legislature and 25 years of unbroken democracy in Nigeria. And our parliamentary guide today is Ranking Member of the House, Honorable Francis Ejirogene Waive, who represents Ughelli North, Ughelli South, and Udu Federal Constituency from Delta State. He is also the Chairman, House Committee on Rules and Business. Honorable Francis Waive, thank you for coming on Parliamentary Guide.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much.
Honorable Waive, how would you say, as Chairman, House Committee on Rules and Business, how would you say the National Assembly has fared these past 25 years of sustained democracy in Nigeria? Would you say there have been measurable progress? And what would be your yardstick or yardsticks for the progress that has been made so far?
Yeah, thank you. I believe the National Assembly is maturing. It's much more matured than it was in 1999 when the Fourth Republic started. And if you look at everything that has happened from the First Assembly right on down to this 10th Assembly, you would come to that conclusion that we are maturing, we've done a lot. I remember in 99, the set of 99 to 2003 to 2007, they were able to do one major thing, which was to veto Mr. President's, the NDDC bill I'm referring to, that Mr. President didn't sign at that time. You know, that was an act of maturity, that a law can come into effect without presidential assent. That's an evidence that the legislature is doing well. And of course, you know, the legislature was the arm of government that stopped the third term, you know, for which to amend the constitution and all of that. And if you come on from all that, you will see the progress that the legislature has made in terms of capacity building, in terms of being able to make laws for the good governance of our country, in terms of, look at the constitutional amendments that have been done. The National Assembly has really matured over the years, except for the high turnover of members. Our constituents, the general populace, still think that, like the executive arm of government, we are entitled to just 2 terms. So there's that idea that, oh, you've done your 2 terms, go away. Or there's this idea of this part of the constituency or district has done its time, goes to the next. But all that helps to reduce the benefits of institutional memory, capacity building that has taken place. In the United States and other mature democracies, you find people who have been in parliament 30 years, thereabout. But all that apart, we have matured. You find that the banana peel is no longer there. At one time, our leadership would change every 3-6 months. Now you have people running full tenures as presiding officers, even 2 tenures. We have seen that happen in our democracy. So maturing is taking place. And then you see take the PIB that has become the PIA, the Petroleum Industry Act. For a number of parliaments of the assemblies, we couldn't come to a compromise. But maturity has come in, and we're able to cross ethnic lines, regional lines, party lines, and in the 9th Assembly, that was passed into law. So if you look at all of these, you find that the National Assembly is growing. And then you look at the infrastructure that has also come into being over these years, the National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies, is a testimony to that. And that has been a help to parliamentarians and our aides as we do this job, you know, and several other things. The recent one now is the library, the National Assembly Library, which is coming into effect. So many things are going on, and we thank God that we have parliamentarians now that can stand it. Their colleagues anywhere in the world. In fact, as we travel and do parliamentary visits to observe what is happening in other parliaments, and other parliamentarians also come here. And as we compare notes, prepare review, comparing parliamentary practices, the conclusion is that the Nigerian parliament is maturing.
Honorable, in the past, partisan rifts are noticeable in parliament and the lawmaking processes, especially where lawmakers would oppose a bill or motion because it's not coming from the majority or minority caucus and not on the basis of national interest. Do you think we are having more or less of this in the legislature today, and why?
Yeah, I would say we are seeing less of it, because even if you take the 8th Assembly, for instance, where the election of the presiding officer didn't go the way of the majority party, you find that that's another example of when people win the election, they've seen their parties as vehicles to a destination. And when they get here, national interest becomes the main issue. Then you look at the 9th Assembly, where working together with the executive and between the Senate and the House of Rep to make sure that there is some peace and harmony such that we can achieve development for our country. And then again, now in the 10th Assembly, you can find that on the floor, there is no sectional divide as we debate issues. It's always, most of the time, what's best for our country. And I'm glad that that's the kind of leadership we have had, and that's also the kind of followership we are having. The Nigerian Parliament, the National Assembly has done well, and we continue to do well. The fact that we've had this turnover has been a challenge, but take the 10th Assembly, for example. The Speaker, Right Honorable Tajuddin Abbas, he has done very well. In this 1 year, we've had several capacity building programs, such that the gap between those of us who are ranking and those who are coming newly, the gap is being bridged by the wisdom of our Speaker, the Right Honorable Tajuddin Abbas, PhD. He's done a good job, and things are getting better for us. So I would say very well. Party lines, you see even some non-majority party members chairing some committees that one would expect.
Now, the cost of governance has been a burning issue in the country today, so much so that a group of lawmakers in the 10th Assembly are canvassing for a return to parliamentary system of government, which used to be the practice in the past. Is that the panacea, and is it about the system being practiced or about the people practicing the system?
Well, I completely disagree with those honorable members who brought up that bill. But in a democracy, everybody must have their say, and then the majority will have their way. So as chairman, rules and business, I didn't allow my personal prejudices. I still listed that bill to be debated to be listed on the floor for first reading, and then we'll go on to second reading. I do not believe that the parliamentary system of government will be better for our country, or even cheaper for our country to run. The major cost that is huge in governance does not come from the system we operate. You look at the country today, we have over 1,000 parastatals of government, agencies and departments of government, over 1,000. If you look at the Orisai report, at that time, we were just talking about 300. And the report was saying it was too much. Now we're about 1,000. So you have to replicate management, middle level, and all of that. And you talk of all things that go with that, vehicle, staffing, and all that. Those are the issues. The system of government per se is not our problem. We tried parliamentary in the First Republic, and we all know the results. Regionalism got to the point where it was ethnicism. It wasn't good. And you know that if you run a parliamentary system, you're going to have a shadow government also. The members of cabinet are also members of parliament. And in that case, so it's not difficult to, in the presidential system where you have to summon a minister. Now the minister is with you in parliament. That's a convenience. But it's not a reduction in cost as far as I can see. And I don't think that the problem is with the system we operate. The problem really is with the people who operate it. If you bring parliamentary or presidential or any kind, we'll still have the same people with the same mindset. We are going to end up in this at the same point. For me as a person, I would prefer what South Africa have done, Ghana have done. They have married the presidential system with the parliamentary system and with their own indigenous ideas of how governance should be. I think that may be what we'll work on. But before we get there, the Nigerian people must get to that point where we love our country, where we own our country, where we can deal with this matter of corruption and lawlessness. If all that is done, the system we operate will not be the issue, my brother. That's the way I look at it.
Okay, let's move on to the zonal intervention projects, also known as constituency projects. That has come under criticism over time, especially with the argument of political patronage and usurpation of executive function to execute and implement these projects. Would you agree with critics of the zonal intervention projects?
I don't agree with them, and the reason is simple. Many people don't understand it. Before I came into the house, I didn't understand what zonal intervention projects are about.
Once criticized
Oh yes, before I came into the house.
the project.
And it's based on what I read in the media, what people say. But when you experience it, it's a different thing. For one, I will tell you that most local governments today in this country don't run. And most constituencies, the only federal presence they have is these zonal intervention projects. So it's a vital link between government and the people. And there's that idea that the legislature is taking over the function of the executive. It doesn't arise because the execution is completely done by the federal ministries, agencies, and departments where these projects are domiciled. Before I came, my thinking was that the constituency projects, the money is given to you, and then you go and do what you like with it. That was the idea that was penned.
But that's what people still think.
No, but that is not true. What you do as a lawmaker is that you nominate the project. You look at your area, what would my people need? And you say, oh, I think my people need this kind of project. And then you are given an envelope. You cannot nominate a project beyond a particular amount. So you look at that window and you say, oh, it's a federal primary healthcare center that a major community in my constituency would need. So you say that community should get that primary healthcare center at that price. And you say at so-and-so, to be domiciled at so-and-so agency. So the agency will now go to that place, look at the availability of land and all that, advertise, and qualified contractors from the bidding process, normally following the guidelines, will emerge. And then the contract will be awarded. You determine the type of project, you determine where it is located, but you don't execute it. You don't. And for many lawmakers, they just allow it to flow. And the results are all over the country. The few instances where some people have tried to change the narrative and not allow it go the way it should go, those ones are already with law enforcement. But for the majority of us, everybody has followed due process, and those projects are seen across the country. except, of course, in some regimes, I will use that word, where you had only 20% funding, 40% funding. That cannot complete such projects. So you find some of such projects not being completed in some parts of the country during the tenures of those presidents who funded 0.5% or 20% or something. But President Buhari in the 9th Assembly funded 100%. And we are hoping that President Tinubu will do the same. And in that case, there will be no excuse for any lawmaker.
Okay, I'm talking about the envelope which you talked about. Is there a criterion or criteria for determining the size of the envelope for any constituency, or it's on equal basis across board?
Yeah, I think it's equal per state. Then, depending on your number from that state, it's shared equally. So that figure, you nominate a project that can, figure can execute. That's the way it's done.
All right, you are still watching the program, Parliamentary Guide, and we have been speaking with Ranking Member of the House, Honorable Francis Ejirogene Waive, who has been a Parliamentary Guide. We take a short break at this time, and we'll be back with more on the program. Do stay.
Nigeria, the only country we can truly call our own. A country filled with great men and women with remarkable potentials to excel. Let us believe in ourselves and change our attitude for the sake of our country and generations unborn. Let us revive our cultural values, which are our essence as a nation. Let us renew the spirit of patriotism and hope in our dear country. Do not take or give bribe. Be punctual always. No more African time. We can't expect to be global citizens and operate on African time. Join the queue. Insist that people are attended to on a first-come basis, no matter who they are or where they come from.
Nigeria, good people, great nation.
Many thanks for staying tuned. The program is still Parliamentary Guide, and we have Honorable Francis Ejirogene Waive still on the program. Now, Honorable, constitution amendment or constitution review process is a ritual of every assembly in our democratic trajectory. Would you say this has helped to tweak our laws in the quest for good governance and democracy dividends which our people earnestly yearn for?
Absolutely, yes. Except of course the first time when it was attempted, when everything was put in as one bill, and because the then president didn't like one particular one, and threw the baby and the bathwater away, from which the legislature have learned. And each amendment or proposed amendment is now made as a bill of its own. And since that time, we have had some of them being signed into law, after, of course, getting two-thirds of the State House of Assemblies to give their consent. So we've had presidential assent to some of them. For instance, usually any president can decide not to appoint ministers for 2 years of his tenure. But with the constitutional amendment, you must do that within 6 months. So those kind of changes have come in through constitutional amendment. And normally, law evolves with society. As people begin to change, developments begin to come in, technology, there will be a need to tweak the law to suit the current realities. That is why even in the United States, whose democracy is over 200 years old, they still do constitutional amendments till today. And that is why we'll continue to do constitutional amendments. The one we are going to do in the 10th Assembly will even be much better. Already we are seeing the direction. There seems to be a consensus, for instance, on state policing at the National Assembly. We pray that when it gets to the State House of Assemblies, they will not be muzzled to reject what is good for Nigeria. You know, I mean the State House of Assemblies now. You know, but
Invariably, you are a proponent for state police.
yes, of course, but I would even propose local government policing, because my fear really is that if you do state police, we might get to a point where what is happening at the national level will begin to also happen at the state level. What we actually need is for policemen to serve in their place of origin. And of course, in the developed democracies of the world, again, you hear of the London Metropolitan Police, you hear of the New York Police Department. Those are the kind of things, not a state or a province or a region, or even the national police. The national police in many countries deal with only matters of intelligence, and not in terms of day-to-day security. And now that we've had this unitary system of policing for all these years, and security has become a major issue with our country, everybody seems to now think, well, at this point, this is the way to go. And I think that with the way the debates are going, we're going to get there.
Okay, all right. You are a member of the Constitution Review Committee of the House. What should Nigerians look forward to? What will be done differently from previous exercises? Don't forget that there have even been bill drafting issues in the past, especially in the 8th and 9th Assembly, where the President has had to return bills sent to him for assent as a result of poor bill drafting issues. So what do you think will be done differently in this constitutional review exercise?
Yeah, I must say that the problems that were identified with drafting, they were not majorly having to do with Constitution. The Constitutional Review Committees in the past have done an excellent job. And this 10th Assembly's Constitutional Review Committee will not come down on that. The benchmark has been set. The problems with bill drafting are being dealt with. The Nigerian Institute of Legislative and Democratic Studies now offer free services to legislators for drafting of bills for them. And then most legislators like myself, I went through there for a master's program in legislative studies. Many others are doing the same. So that has helped. Then we have a department now in the House of Reps, and I believe in the Senate too, that deals with bills drafting that help scrutinize what we draft. But having said that, for the constitutional review of this 10th Assembly, you will notice the body language that devolution of power from the central appears to be the angle. I'm chairman rules and business, so I see many of the propositions that are coming in for constitutional amendment. Many of them have got to do with that devolution of power to the subnationals. And I think that's where we are going.
From a unitary...
Yes. True federalism, some people will call it. That's the way we are going. And I want to urge our women folk, to continue the push for more involvement of women in our body politic. They shouldn't reduce the tempo. It will help our country. I'm looking at the bills that are being presented, and I'm not seeing enough of the women stuff, because the challenge with democracy is that if you don't make your point, you don't make your request, it will not be considered. It's those ones that are on the floor that will be considered. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that there's no women request in this, but the ratio is so small.
Would you attribute that to perhaps the equally small ratio of women in parliament?
Not necessarily. There are women advocacy groups. You know, there are women civil society-led groups, women-based civil society organizations. They should up their game. And the few women that we have in parliament should be helped, encouraged with legislation for them to put on the table, and then for them to now lobby to get passed. That's the way I look at it.
All right, let's still have this one more question. The 10th Assembly will be marking 1 year in office of sustained democracy. What would you say have been the gains, and what are the prospects for the future?
Well, in the 10th Assembly, we started on a challenging note. About 80% new members. And that meant there was a need for capacity building. And our Speaker, the Right Honorable Tajudeen Abbas, has taken the bull by the horn. In this 1 year, there have been several. My committee, for example, have done our own committee training 3 within 1 year. And as a house, I think we've done up to 4 or thereabout. And then several committees have done that. All this, to help to bridge that. It's making progress. The quality of bills and motions that are coming now are better than when we first came. So the effort Mr. Speaker is putting into it is yielding. But I must say that in spite of all of that, these people I call new, many of them are very resourceful people. I think this assembly has the highest number of university professors, the highest number of architects, chartered architects, fellow of the institutes, engineers, doctors, lawyers, you name any profession, retired PAMSECs, army generals, we have them on the floor. So it's a beautiful, and then we have a lot of young people too, who are very zealous and very enthusiastic. So training has been one of our gains this period. And then, like no other assembly in the past, within 1 year we've had proposed over 1,000 bills. I believe about 1,005 as we speak. It has never happened within a year in any assembly. And our motions too are about the same number, so it has made the assembly very busy with the number of bills and motions that have come on the floor. All this apart, we've also had some landmark legislations. For instance, the Audit Ordinance of 1956. We are the assembly that have now passed a new one, which repealed that of 1956. So before independence, you can imagine. So this is a focused legislature with a legislative agenda that members are familiar with, are happy with, and are running with. And then one beautiful thing about this assembly is a people's assembly. The involvement of the people is like at no other time. Look at the budget session. After the presentation, there was a town hall meeting for the budget generally. This is different from the committee level, where every MDA comes to defend and the public is free to also make their inputs, civil society and all of that. There was a broad-based opportunity available for the public to bring in their inputs. And that's the way Mr. Speaker has run the 10th Assembly. And this assembly is truly the people's house. And by the time we finish this tenure, Nigerians will say there has not been an assembly that involved the masses of the Nigerian people like we are having in the 10th National Assembly.
All right, Honorable Francis Ejirogene Waive, we thank you so much for your insights on the program.
Thank you very much.
And you will agree with me that it has been an insightful conversation on Parliamentary Guide today. And that has been the size of our package on this episode of the program. To join us again for another episode of the program. We thank you so much for your time. My name is Mitaire Ikben. I'll say stay patriotic and keep contributing to nation building.
When we talk of democracy, we mean true representation, and the parliament is the place, and therefore the people must be informed. A program that brings to you expert clarifications and teachings of parliamentary concepts and procedures. Welcome to this program.
Thank you very much.
On Parliamentary Guide, we'll teach, we explain, we clarify parliamentary concepts and terms.
Not violence run oversight over the executive. Not violence run oversight over the executive.
When we talk of democracy, we mean true representation, and the parliament is the place, and therefore the people must be informed. A program that brings to you expert clarifications and teachings of parliamentary concepts and procedures. Welcome to this program.
Thank you very much.
On Parliamentary Guide, we'll teach, we explain, we clarify parliamentary concepts and terms.
Not violence run oversight over the executive. Not violence run oversight over the executive.